Chapter 1. The Witness Speaks. The night was thick with the scent of damp earth and distant rain when the scream tore through the quiet streets of Buenos Aires. It was the kind of sound that made dogs howl and children clutch their mother's skirt sharp, sudden, and unnatural. Inside the grand casa of Juan Manuel Rosas, the air hung heavy with the weight of something unspeakable. The candles flickered as if caught in a draught, though no window had been open. And then there was the dog, Justicia, a bloodhound with a coat the color of storm clouds, his ears pricked forward, his nostrils flaring as he paced the marble floors. He had been trained to guard, to protect, but this day was different. The house was too still, the scent of blood was too fresh. And the woman who had always called to him, my fiel amigo, lay motionless on the floor, her silk gown spread around her like a pool of spilled ink. The first to arrive was the housekeeper, her hands trembling as she clutched her rosary. She found Justicia whining at the door, his massive head bowed, his tail tucked low. He did not bark, he did not growl. He simply watched, his dark eyes reflecting the horror of the room. The housekeeper crossed herself, her breath hitching as she took in the scene. María Los Remedios de Escalada, the beloved wife of the most powerful man in Buenos Aires, was gone. By dawn, the streets were alive with whispers. The governor's wife dead in her own home. The scandal was too great, the implications too dangerous. The authorities moved quickly, but there was no sign of forced entry, no weapon left behind. Only Justicia remained, his presence, a silent accusation. He had seen everything. He had heard everything. And yet he could not speak. The investigators came with their questions, their notebooks, their skeptical glances. They examined the body, the room, the dog. They noted the way Justicia's ears twitched at the sound of certain voices, the way his tail stiffened when a particular servant entered the room. But dogs, they reasoned, were creatures of instinct. What could they truly know? Yet those who knew Justicia best understood otherwise. He was no ordinary hound. He had been bred for his intelligence, his loyalty, his uncanny ability to read a room. He had been at Mara's side for years, his bond with her deeper than any human servant's. If anyone had seen the truth of that night, it was him. The days passed, and the investigation stalled. The governor, Juan Manuel Rosas, was a man of power, but even he could not silence the rumors. Some said it was a political assassination. Others whispered of a lover's betrayal. A few dared to suggest that the killer had been someone close, someone who knew the house, the routines, the dog. And Justicia, he waited, he watched, he remembered. The nights were the worst. The house was too quiet without Mara's laughter, her soft humming as she worked at her embroidery. The servants moved like shadows, their voices hushed, their eyes darting toward the dog as if he might suddenly speak. Justicia did not sleep. He patrolled the halls, his claws clicking against the stone, his nose pressed to the floorboards as if searching for a scent that had long since faded. Then, one evening, a visitor arrived. A man in a long coat, his hat pulled low, his boots muddy from the streets. He did not announce himself. He did not ask permission. He simply stepped into the house as if he belonged there. Justicia's hackles rose. His lips curled back, revealing teeth that had never bitten. A human before, the man froze. He knew the dog. He knew what Justicia could do. The man spoke softly, his voice barely above, a whisper. You remember me, don't you? He reached into his pocket, and Justicia's growl deepened. But it was not a weapon he pulled out. It was a handkerchief that had once belonged to Mara. The dog's ears perked. His tail gave a single hesitant wag. The man smiled. Good boy. The next morning, Justicia was gone. The house was searched. The streets were combed. But the dog had vanished, as if the earth itself had swallowed him whole. The governor's men were furious. The investigators were baffled. And the people of Buenos Aires, they whispered that Justicia had known too much, that he had been silenced. But the truth was far more complicated. In the years that followed, rumors persisted. Some claimed the dog had been seen in the countryside, his coat matted with dirt, his eyes wild with grief. Others swore they had heard him howling at night, a sound that sent chills down their spines. But no one could say for certain. No one could prove it, and so the case remained unsolved. The killer walked free. The governor's grief turned to rage. And Justicia, he became a legend, a ghost of justice, a silent witness to a crime that would never be forgotten. But the story does not end here. The truth is still out there. And somewhere, in the shadows of Buenos Aires, a dog still waits.